Hello and welcome back to the Section 101 podcast. I am your host, Ben Lyle Schwartz, and today I am joined by YouTuber JelloGPastel to give out our WWE Mid-Year Awards. How you doing today, Jello?
Man, I'm doing all right. I cannot complain myself. Wasn't feeling too great this morning, but, slept it off and we're good to go. And I'm ready to get after giving out these awards, man, because wrestling this year, from the back half of 2023 and going into this year, it's been nothing. It's been nothing but greatness, actually, honestly, in my opinion. But, it all depends on how we feel about this year.
Yeah, and I mean, I was thinking of doing this for AEW, but once again, I'm not paying $60 for a pay-per-view. That is just outrageous.
Yeah, because I feel like what they look, AEW, they're a great company, they're a great product, but I don't want to pay $60 for a pay per view.
No.
Like throw it on HBO Max, throw it on
Yep.
their streaming services. When
Yeah.
HBO Max get that deal working, throw it on HBO Max. Yes, it's going to cause some people to have their prices go up a little bit more, but hey, it's better than having to pay $60 out the gate. And honestly, I'd rather be able to get to watch these pay per views for free. I'm already paying for a streaming service that I have to pay for. Why not just give it to me for free?
Yeah, and even if you get like a VPN, it's still like $20. And I get it's like 5 hours of wrestling, but still
Right.
it's 5 hours for $20. And with WWE, you can get the whole content library and all the pay-per-views for just like $7 a month.
Right. And
So
then once they make that shift to Netflix, yeah, Netflix is going to go up a little bit, but I'm like, if you already got Netflix, you're fine. You don't
yeah,
have to worry about anything else.
that's what's great about I'm hoping that, wrestling moves to streaming subscriptions fully because I have cable and I don't want to pay like all this money. And on top of AEW, hopefully they move to Max so I can totally get rid of cable and just go to streaming services. Because right now, in order to watch AEW, you have to have cable.
Right. You have to, so I mean with some of the WWE shows, you have to, of course you have to have cable, but except for outside of Raw, Monday Night Raw and their pay-per-views. Now at AEW, you have to have cable to watch all their stuff, basically, which that's kind of a little bit of a downside. But enough of that. Let's get into these awards.
Now, let's get
What we
into these
working with?
awards, but firstly, Jello, if you want to guide our viewers to anywhere to watch your content, where should they go?
So right now, at the moment, so I do have wrestling content. I do cover wrestling stuff, but also too on my YouTube channel as well, outside of just wrestling. I'm gonna start doing college football stuff because college football season, it's rolling around the corner. The new video game just came out. So if you want to watch content there, JelloGPastel is my YouTube channel name. And then also too, I also stream on Twitch, twitch.tv/JelloGPastel. So those are two places you can find me to watch any of my content that I have.
All right, sounds great. And yeah, our channel covers all types of sports. With college football starting, it's a busy season for sports. So definitely check us both out if you enjoy it. But without further ado, let's get into the awards. We will be starting out with our 5 best matches, 5-1. Jello, what is your 5th best match of the year?
Ooh, 5th best match of the year for 2024. Ah, man, there's so many options. There's so many on the table. But honestly, the 5th best match of the year for me has to be the Fatal 4-Way Royal Rumble match between Roman Reigns, AJ Styles, Randy Orton, and LA Knight. And in that moment, any of those guys could have walked out with that belt, with that title, because those 3 guys were viable contenders and viable competitors to take on Roman Reigns, honestly. And at the end of the day, yes, Roman Reigns did retain, but overall that match, it was a solid match. It was a solid match in my opinion, from what I got to see out of it. And I felt like there were numerous times where it could have been Randy who could have won, or LA Knight who could have won, or AJ who could have won. But at the end of the day, they were like, nah, we still got to keep this belt on Roman and keep it going until we get to WrestleMania 40. And I was like, okay, understandably so. But it felt like there are numerous times somebody could have came out of that match. But that's my 5th best match, honestly.
Yeah, I think the thing with that match that pissed me off was you have 4 people and you still want to rely on Solo Sikoa to bring interference.
Right.
To me,
Right.
that was really like you got 4 people in the match. I know you want to build a false finish, but have one of them break up the pin and we can finally get away from it's Solo Sikoa in a hoodie of all things.
Right.
So, yeah, The match was very good. It was just that part for me that was like, oh no, they're going to this again. And what I was looking forward to in that match was having some, elements not of bloodline interference.
Right.
Yeah, so my fifth best match of the year is super underrated. People don't talk about it enough because of the main event of this show, and that is the opening match of Backlash, Randy Orton and Kevin Owens versus the Bloodline. A great crowd to elevate a
Oh,
great
that was a great
match.
crowd. That was a great crowd.
Yeah, for my money, the best crowd ever. I don't think it gets much better than fans staying engaged throughout the entire Backlash and SmackDown of that weekend. And this was exactly what it needed to be. You have a blood feud, and why would you just have them go out there and play on a regular tag team match? So Nick
Right.
Aldis, the best GM of all time, comes out and says, let's make this no DQ. And it worked super well. They should have done the no DQ thing at Money in the Bank as well.
Oh, they should have.
Yeah, and you have, these two sides that are very much at odds to give them the stipulation of do whatever the heck you want, and then we can go from there. But this match was awesome. It was 20 minutes of fun. The botch debut of Tonga Loa kind of added something to the
Yeah.
match. It was unexpected. I was expecting Jacob Fatu, but they give us the
Same.
infamous Tonga Loa, which added something to the match that was already very, very good.
Yeah. But
And so my fourth best match, you're going to see a lot of WrestleMania in these four. Number 4 is Logan Paul versus Randy Orton versus Kevin Owens at WrestleMania. Logan Paul once again proving why he is one of the best wrestlers. Like him or not as a person, he is a phenomenal professional wrestler. Randy and Kevin were friends at the beginning, but then they added in that bit of, okay, this is unpredictable, and they started fighting each other. Speed
right.
showing up in the Prime bottle was awesome. That got a lot of mainstream attention. But yeah,
And getting
this match,
RKO'd on
it
the
was,
table.
yeah, I mean, it was a nasty bump for him to take, too. And after he got punted by Randy, I mean, it was a
Right.
fun match from beginning to end, and Logan retaining was the correct decision.
Mm-hmm.
And this opened up a lot of stories for Randy and Kevin going forward. All in all,
Right.
just a very, very good match.
Man, see, my fourth best match, honestly, it is a WrestleMania match, but I feel like not a lot of people really bring up the fact that the tag ladder match was my fourth best favorite match of WrestleMania, honestly, because not only was that the culmination of the splitting of the titles respectively, which was finally needed after so long, but also too, it gave of course R-Truth this moment at WrestleMania that he never got, but also too, it gave Grayson Waller and Austin Theory a chance to be tag champs. Because I felt like at one point in time, like how they were starting to mesh and mold, I was thinking they're going to end up being a great tag team together at some point down the road. But overall, the different spots, the different the ladder stuff, everything. And especially like when Damian Priest got pissed at the ref when he was trying to climb the ladder and the ref was trying to tell him, hey, yo, that ladder's broken. He was like, he got pissed off. So he took the ladder, threw it out the ring, and it's like, yeah, I'm getting these titles back. But that right there, I feel like was a solid match overall. It's not talked about enough. And I feel like you said, it's an underrated match because of the amount of people who were in that match who were all viable contenders for being tag champs for any brand respectively, outside of AOP, because AOP did not need to be. No, AOP wasn't even in that match. What
No,
am I
they
talking
weren't.
about? No,
Yeah,
they weren't. It's
and that's a good
even if they
thing.
were, and even if they were in that match, I'm like, they don't need the tag titles anyway. But I felt like if a New Catch Republic could have been great tag champs, I really, outside of them, I wanted Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano to win one of the titles, so that way they could have a nice WrestleMania moment, and and just finally get something under their belts. But I mean, hey, finally they're tag champs, so that's all that matters.
Yeah, I had DIY winning that match, and you talk about their WrestleMania moment. I think their WrestleMania moment is going to come in a one-on-one match. I think Triple
That's
H
what I
is
feel
he's
like.
going to go down the road of what he did in NXT, and
Mm-hmm.
will he be able to recreate what he did in NXT? I don't think so. But
Nah.
if he gets anywhere near the magic that those two had done in NXT, it is going to be very, very good. And, Johnny had the good spot where he slingshot DDT'd. I think it might have been Waller or Theory. Someone
I
threw a
think
table
so.
to the outside. Yeah, there were tons of spots in that match. And one that I think we both have missed so far is R-Truth making the hot tag from The Miz doing it once
I
again.
forgot about
Yeah.
that.
I mean, it was a match so loaded with fun spots that you forget about all of them. That's the mark of a very good match, is when you can talk
Yeah.
about it for super, super long.
And especially like when like the one thing I forgot about too is JD McDonough came out to try and help
Yeah.
the Judgment Day get the tag titles back. And in the process, he went through a table because of it.
Yeah, may I say Chelsea Green did that better, but still, it was
Yeah, she did.
very good, a very solid match. My one gripe with it was not enough story, but in a
Mhm.
WrestleMania match where you need a lot of spots, this did the job.
Yeah. So I know now we're getting into the top threes. Now for my third match, respectively, honestly, like this is my number three. After seeing both the men and the women take on the ladder matches for Money in the Bank, that's respectively my third spot. The Money in the Bank ladder matches, both of them, respectively, in my third spot. And now, outside of course, your winners, Drew McIntyre. First off, let's talk about the men's side first. The men's Money in the Bank ladder match, they were all great guys, all great competitors, all did everything. All the spots were crazy, but the two guys who were MVP for that match for me were Carmelo Hayes and Andrade. They were putting out stuff and pulling out things like it was like NXT, like it was NXT all over again for them. But honestly, I felt like giving the briefcase to Drew, it was the right thing to do, but I feel like they should have waited for him to cash in at a later point so that way CM Punk could screw him over at a later point down the road versus then that same night. Um and honestly, at the end of the day, you don't need the briefcase to tell a story, but also too you do in a way, because it's that obsession that Drew has with CM Punk. And of course, we all were thinking, oh, CM Punk's not going to be in Toronto. Nope, he showed up. He was in Toronto, screwed over Drew out of his cash in, and then it turned into screwing Seth Rollins out of his championship match. But at the end of the day, the men's Money in the Bank ladder match, was the winner correct? And the winner, did we all feel like a lot of us wanted Drew to win? No, not really. But a lot of us wanted Jey Uso to win and to have him get a singles moment, give him a singles title, give him a singles push, something for him to do. But he's just so over. He doesn't need a title, honestly. But shifting from the men's to the women's eight. They were pulling out spots, like Io and Zoe Stark. That one spot, what was it? Was it a DDT? It was a DDT or a powerbomb.
It
What
was
was
like a
it?
Michinoku pile driver. It
Yeah,
was
it was a Michinoku. Yeah, it was
wild.
Michinoku driver on the ladder, and how Zoe sold that, like she just stood stiff and just hit the canvas. That was a great spot. Chelsea Green, of course, going through the tables from the top of the ladder, that was great. And of course, the next on Friday, she was of course wearing a neck brace, which when that happened, but of course trying to get in touch with Nick Aldis. That's besides the point. But every single woman in that match who were a part of it, honestly, we were all hoping Chelsea Green would win it. It's in Canada. It's in her hometown. It's in her home country. But it was Tiffy time. Tiffany Stratton took the win. She has the women's Money in the Bank briefcase. Now, I feel like when she'll cash in, I feel like she'll cash in at SummerSlam, honestly. I feel like SummerSlam or later on down the road. Or wait it out and pull a heist of the century like Seth Rollins did at WrestleMania. Who knows? But that's my number three, is the Money in the Bank ladder matches. What you got, Ben?
Yeah, before I get to number three, the Money in the Bank ladder matches this year were good. I didn't think they were outstanding. Like I always,
Mm-hmm.
I recommend Money in the Bank 2021 or two, whatever was 21, the first pay-per-view back in front of fans. That Money in the Bank ladder match is
Oh, it
outstanding,
was. And
absolutely
especially John Cena
outstanding.
coming back, Roman
Yeah.
Reigns retaining against Edge. It was all that whole, and especially the Money in the Bank ladder match itself was great. I may have to go back and watch that now because I'm blanking on it a little bit, but I do remember 2021. I do remember that, but I got to go back and rewatch it and see who was in it.
Yeah, that's definitely a match you should go back and rewatch. Anybody, if you have the time, it's an awesome match, and it's
Oh
one of
yeah.
those I recommend to new wrestling fans because it is just straight spots for 15 minutes. And Big E wins, which is an awesome moment at the end.
Exactly.
But this year's Money in the Bank, I thought Drew winning was the right decision, but Punk should have costed him before the cash-in actually happened. Of
That's what
all
I
the other
think.
guys in the match, none of them really had a good spot as Mr. Money in the Bank. As over as Jey Uso is, and as much as I think he
Yeah.
should have a title, he's wrapped up in Bloodline stuff for the rest of the year.
Oh, he
That's
is.
his
No,
route for the
yeah.
rest of the year. So I don't think he needs it. None of the other guys I
Nah.
think were ready. And I heard on the Wrestle Talk podcast, great podcast by the way.
Oh, yeah, they are.
They're awesome, and they said with Vince McMahon, Money in the Bank was very much a ratings pop. I don't think
Mhm.
it is that way for Triple H. It's a storyline
No.
development, and they did it very, very well with Punk and
Oh,
Drew. And I
they
think
did.
we'll get the ratings pop with Stratton. I think
Mhm.
I think Nia's beating Bailey at SummerSlam, and then we'll have the tensions between the two going forward. But yeah, the
Right.
Money in the Bank ladder matches this year are very good. I think what's more important with those were the stories coming out of them, which I think are even better. So moving on to number 3 for me, it's just an awesome match, the most underrated match of this year. Io versus Bailey at WrestleMania, an
Okay.
absolute classic. Still think if it wasn't for The Rock showing up, this should have been your night one main event.
It
It
would
was
have
the
it would have been.
it was the best traditional wrestling story leading into WrestleMania. The match didn't disappoint. I mean, Bailey kicking out of the moonsault was outstanding. We had Io flipping out of the rose plant, which was very much like a oh my moment. Like very, very good stuff. And of course, good to see Bailey get her moment. I mean, all the other four horsewomen, it seems, have had their moments. And for Bailey to finally get that moment at WrestleMania
Mhm.
is a very, very good thing.
Yeah. And honestly, I do agree that really that match, I feel like it would have been like you said, I do agree with you. It would have been a main event match if The Rock didn't come back. If he wasn't back, that would have been your night one main event, honestly. But I did enjoy that Bailey got her moment, her kicking out of the moonsault. Io, like you said, that spot where Io flipped out of the rose plant. It that whole match, that's just wrestling. That was just straight up technical wrestling at its finest, honestly. But also too, it's two former best friends who started together last year at SummerSlam, and then all the way up until the point where they had their match at WrestleMania, you saw the bits and pieces, you saw the cracks happening, especially when Kyrie returned. That was one of the things when Kyrie Sane returned and came back and she joined Damage Control. It felt like, okay, this is where a shift is going to slowly start happening at some point later down the road.
Yeah, Bailey was an all-star during that entire story. Her facials, her emotions, everything is awesome now. Her reign as women's champion has been incredibly underwhelming, but that's not her
Right?
fault. It's more of a
Nah.
fault of the booking. And I think the matches she's had have been good, but there's not going to be topping this. This is one of the best WrestleMania matches. I liked it more than Rhea and Charlotte. I did, and I thought it was because
Mm-hmm.
the story leading into it was 10 times better. Speaking of
Right.
stories, my number 2 match didn't have much story to it. Cody Rhodes versus AJ Styles at Backlash. This
Mm-hmm.
match is awesome. I mean, I did not expect them to get 30 minutes. They gave him
I
30
didn't expect him to
minutes.
get 30. Right.
They really, really did a good job with it. Cody kicking out of a burning hammer at 1 is outstanding, and the finish with just one crossroads. Here, the Triple H, one crossroads it's more than enough to finish a match, and it was a very, very good finish.
Right.
It was probably I give it 4 3/4 stars, and it's probably one of the best 4 3/4 star matches to not feature a finisher kickout. They protected
No,
finishes in that
exactly.
match, which really added to me the respect of wrestling that these two
Mm-hmm.
had for the sport and for the art. And this match, elevated by the crowd, really, really good stuff.
Oh yeah. And honestly, for me, I do agree. Like that whole match from start to finish was great. Like you said, him kicking out of that burning hammer, that out of one, I sat there, I looked at it, I was like, I had to like hit a double take with that. I was like, he kicked out of the burning hammer at 1, but like you said, all it takes is one crossroads to end the match. And honestly, when we jump into my number 2, I had a tough choice with my number 2, honestly. But that whole match from start to finish, them getting 30 minutes, the crowd still being engaged the entire time, AJ trying not to crack a smile when they're sitting there just having a ball, I'm like, that's just what it is. It's just, they both enjoyed every ounce of it. Both of those guys. I know they did. They were with the crowd. They were with the energy the entire time. They kept it going even during the match as well too. Now, of course, outside before I get to my number twos, getting into like, of course, the second match that they had at Clash of the Castle. Did I feel like they should have had a third one? I feel like they should have had a third one, but sometimes you only need two to kind of really set it in stone. But at some point in time, or eventually, AJ may end up wanting to retire. He may do something different. Who knows? But that's beside the point. My number two, it was a very tough choice between, like you said, it was like the backlash between Cody Rhodes and AJ Styles, and also to night one, the main event of WrestleMania. And honestly, as my choice, no disrespect to the tag match and all, but I do agree. I agree with you as the number two of Backlash being Cody Rhodes versus AJ Styles. Look, everybody's number two is going to be, yes, WrestleMania night one, the main event of night one. And it was great. I'm not knocking it. But I just it's still my number two. It's still number two in a lot of people's eyes. It's still number two in my eyes. But if we're talking overall, like just from that aspect of it, the AJ Styles Cody Rhodes match slightly edged it more because of the crowd engagement, them two just having 30 minutes of a match, and everything that they did in between the whole 9 yards. AJ with the burning hammer, Cody with the one single crossroads, the Cody cutter, disaster kicks. Just both those guys just having a phenomenal match. And it wasn't like, oh, no one was being like, nah, screw that, don't count because or else you get fired, blah, 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 blah. It was just, you're sitting there enjoying two guys who are very eager and hungry for either holding on to that title or taking the title from the other competitor. And especially AJ at the age that he is now. And especially when he talked about, of course, his fake retirement speech, he was talking about his son and how his son graduated from high school and all that stuff. And he wants to be there for most events and stuff like that. So who knows? Who knows what we see from those two guys? Maybe we do get another match from them two later on down the road. It doesn't have to be for the title. It could just be a straight up singles match. But that's my number two with how they were just overall. That was just a period. The France crowd was great. I'm sorry. The France crowd was great. But that's my number two.
Yeah, before you get into your number one, currently I know cage match can be a little subjective, but the tag match main event of night one is a 7.35. The main criticism for that one was it was too long, and I think it was. The first half was
Right.
very slow paced. If they had just cut to make it a 30-minute match, those last 20 minutes were awesome.
Oh yeah,
And
the
I
last 20
think,
minutes were
yeah,
solid.
outstanding. I was not expecting The Rock to take a rock bottom through the announce table. Like, they really went all out on this one.
Oh, they did.
The first half was just so slow and just prodding that I don't think it did enough for me.
Right. And honestly, like I sat there and watched it and I was like, man, okay, actually start getting into like some stuff, man. Like start doing things. And then like you said, the last 20 minutes of it were great. It was just like the slow build, the slow anticipation, which, and respectively so, The Rock having to get his feet wet back into wrestling because, he hasn't wrestled since what? An actual full length match was John Cena, him and John Cena the second time for the WWE Championship belt. That was the second time. So now him wrestling with his cousin and against Seth Rollins and Cody Rhodes, that was, it was great to see it, but it was like he had to slowly get himself back into the mix of it and all that. But my number one, and I think this is everybody's number one, it is a definite no-brainer. It, of course, is the night two main event of WrestleMania, Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes. And all I just got to say, it was just cinema. Between, of course, yes, Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes putting on a great match. Roman Reigns using Cody's own move and saying, man, it's weak. It's weak. It's awful. It's god awful. The move is trash. How do people lose to this? And it just added more of an element. And even especially when he had him like up against the ropes and he was saying, "This is my company, you SOB." And I was like, okay, we getting real serious with it now. But it started off with, of course, Jimmy coming out, super kicking Cody. Then Jay coming out, fighting his brother, then spearing him off the ramp. Solo coming out. Then John Cena showing up. Then what got me was when John Cena and The Rock were in the middle of the ring and they were standing there face to face. I was like, yo, if we get a third match between them two, and I feel like we might at some point, don't jinx this on us. I feel like there's going to be a third match down the road somewhere at some point because John Cena's retirement is up and coming this year. Well, it's going to start this year, but then, of course, go into next year. So we may get a Rock versus John Cena at some point at a Saudi show. Who knows? But that, and then, of course, seeing The Undertaker come out. Now, did I wish it was Stone Cold? More so than The Undertaker? Absolutely. But I felt like it was the right choice to have The Undertaker because The Undertaker's, that's his yard. That is WrestleMania. He had a streak of 20, well, it's 21 and, well, technically it's 22 and 0, but he's 21 and 1. And also, he was like, man, I'm just going to come back, do this one thing, and then leave and go. But Cody finally getting the championship belt off of Roman Reigns, it was, excuse me, it's a little bit of a breath of fresh air. But I feel like once Roman comes back, it's going to make everything a lot better. And I feel like Cody's going to be stuck in Bloodlines shenanigans for like years to come, honestly. But that's my number one. Ben, what's your number one, my guy?
My number one as well, Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns. It doesn't get much better than this from an in-ring perspective, nor does it get much better from just a sports entertainment perspective. I was very sports entertained during this match. The random interferences that I see them coming, yes. In a way, I think The Undertaker made the match better, because we were all expecting Stone Cold, and The Undertaker, while it might not have been as logical, did have a match with The Rock at WrestleMania, did have a match with Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. It's not totally out of the box. And I think just hearing that gong go off totally, like, it changed the entire complexion of the match. And Michael Cole's iconic call of finish, the story, Samantha Irving breaking down and crying. Like, it was the best. Now, I started watching wrestling in 2020 during the pandemic era. This is my favorite wrestling match that I've seen since then. I'm going back and watching some of the greats. It doesn't get much better than this.
No,
and this is
no, you finish.
It's Roman and Cody showing that they have great chemistry, and we will get Roman Cody 3. And my pitch the whole time: Cody Rhodes retires Roman Reigns. They have history together. They main evented WrestleMania twice. It's perfect. These two have great chemistry, and then it evolves into madness. An absolutely perfect wrestling match, perfectly booked. Everything was just awesome.
Yeah, see, and of course you said you started watching wrestling like in 2020.
Yeah.
So I started watching wrestling in what? Oh my god, Vince McMahon was still running the show. He was still running the show, the Super Cena era, the pipe bomb stuff, CM Punk and John Cena's feud. I'm in my late 20s, but I've seen it all. And outside of the years I've watched wrestling, this year and overall and now Triple H is running the show and he's taking the reins has been great. Like, yes, everybody's gonna have their mistakes, of course, but his mistakes, they're bad, but they're not as bad as Vince McMahon's mistakes. And honestly, this year of wrestling period has just been pure it's just been pure cinema and also sports entertainment aspect. And I do agree with you on that as well.
Yeah, and we go from the best to the worst. The worst premium live event match of the year for me, it's got to be Jimmy versus Jay at WrestleMania. And this is not a bad match. People get this all mixed up. This is not a bad match. Like, going back, and I'm watching 2017 right now on my down track of all of wrestling. This is awesome. This is a perfectly fine match. I didn't give a single premium live event match this year less than 2 stars. And that is very, very commendable for Triple H. This was my 2-star match. This is a match that just happened. It wasn't anything awesome, but it wasn't bad. It was just underwhelming.
See, and honestly, I'm not going to lie. I felt like the match for me, Jimmy versus Jay, I do agree. It was pretty it wasn't overwhelming, but it was also wasn't underwhelming. It was just like it's like middle of the road. It was just like it wasn't a bad match, but also too I feel like they could have built it up more. And honestly, what would have made the match a little bit better is if they had their dad involved. If they had
Yep.
their dad involved as the special guest referee in some way, shape, or form. That would have made the match a little bit better because then now you got your two sons, your two twin boys having a match against each other. Now you got your dad involved. That makes it even better because now you're the mediator. You have to mediate between your two boys who are now fighting against each other over different things. And I feel like it wasn't like a terrible match, but it was just like I feel like they could have just built it up a little bit more in all honesty.
Yeah.
Man.
So, what was your worst premium live event match of the year?
See, my worst one it see and it's a tough choice. But honestly, I'll say the worst match that I've honestly seen so far this year. Ooh, see, because like I've seen if I've had my fair share of worse matches. I've seen like terrible matches.
Goldberg
Honestly,
versus
I'm
The
not gonna
Undertaker
lie.
is calling your
I,
name.
though, who you telling that one? DX versus Brothers of
Yeah,
Destruction.
oh god, that's awful
Goldberg
too.
versus The Fiend. But
Oh,
worst match that I have seen, honestly, I'm not gonna lie. It had to have been and I'm gonna take this with a grain of salt. It was I'll say the women's tag match
yep.
at
I mean,
Clash of the Castle, honestly.
okay.
So and look, it wasn't the fact that look, botches happen. Things happen. Of course, Jade Cargill missing it has a botch. Everybody has botches, it happens. But I feel like it seemed like it was a little bit disorganized at the start of it. Like certain parts, okay, it was a little bit more organized, but like certain sections of it seemed disorganized. I was like, what are they doing? What's going on? Then you got Isla Dawn and Alba Fire, and of course Zoe Stark and Shayna Baszler trying to gang up on Bianca and Jade, which of course take out the strong ones, get them out the gate first, handle them, and of course go after each other. But it wasn't a terrible match. It just wasn't. It just felt like it honestly could have been, instead of it being a triple threat, it could have been just an easily simple Bianca Belair versus Jade Cargill versus Isla Dawn and Alba Fire 1-on-1 tag match. Call it a day and just go from there. Because you shouldn't have had to made it a triple threat match, but I can see why. But it just wasn't my personal, like, oh my gosh, my favorite. It just wasn't like my cup of tea. Now the outcome, great outcome, great winners. Needed to shift the titles for a second, give them to them. But I feel like it just wasn't that great of a match in my opinion.
Yeah, and earlier, you talked about how Punk and Cena got you into professional wrestling, and for me, it was a little different. My best return, I went with a technicality here, because all of these people have appeared on WWE programming before. Think you
Right.
can see where I'm going here. I'm going with Uncle Howdy and Company on Monday Night Raw. Bray Wyatt was the guy that got me into professional wrestling, The
Mm-hmm.
Fiend. That character just it had a gravitas towards me, and when his death hit me so hard, and seeing this and just how beautiful it was, not from just a character perspective, but
Mm-hmm.
from a production perspective, I think Bo's been awesome in this new role, and this return was outstanding. You have them just destroying everyone backstage. Chad Gable taken out to start that story. Everything about this was awesome, and I don't think you could have done it any better.
And honestly, look, the guy who got me into wrestling, of course, was John Cena. But it was like the feud with John Cena, Randy Orton, Triple H, when it was like WrestleMania 20. I can't think of what year that was. But John Cena was the first guy who got me into professional wrestling. But I will say the best return, honestly, outside of seeing CM Punk and Randy both come back the same night at Survivor Series, which was great, it was Uncle Howdy. It was seeing Bo Dallas come back and take on what his brother had already started and what they were doing together. And then, of course, slowly, seeing Bray Wyatt pass away, it got me. It got me because Bray Wyatt's character as a whole, not him just as a human, like his character, but him being a human being. He was a down to earth guy from what I've just seen how much he makes an impact for a lot of people. Down to earth. He's really great. And he'll do things that, if he's got to do it, he'll do it. He's that type of guy. But seeing his brother, Bo Dallas, come back, take on the Uncle Howdy role, and bring back and continue what his brother started, it was great. And I sat there. I was almost in tears. I was almost in tears seeing that because I'm like, that takes a lot of heart and that takes a lot of also mental mindset to know that I'm doing this for myself, the people that are with me, and also I'm doing this for my brother. And I want to keep going what he had already started and created.
Yeah, for me, I was more of just in awe during the return, and then I'm getting emotional during these VHS tapes. I mean, they really are going places with this.
They
They're
are.
tackling grief. They're tackling loss, which is it's stuff we've never seen before in wrestling. I mean, at
Right.
times it's been in little things like with Eddie passing away, but
Yeah.
nothing really like to this point using grief and someone's loss. And I can't help but think that Bray would be so proud of this. And it's
He
been very, very well done.
Yeah, and it was very well done outside of the fact, like, not only, like, of course, Bo Dallas, but also seeing Eric Rowan with that VHS tape. And then also on top of the two, there's going to be more over the next couple of weeks with others. So, but what's the next thing on the list, my guy? What we got
Yeah, so
next?
next thing is the feud slash story of the year. And there are three options you could go with here. And two of them don't have a conclusion yet, and I went with the
Mm-hmm.
one that has a conclusion, and that is The Rock and Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes. You also could have gone with Punk and McIntyre here, and I'm sure when we do our end of the year awards, it will be number one. But it
Right.
hasn't had a conclusion. It hasn't had a finish. It hasn't even had a match yet. This
Right.
is a story because of the fans. The fans gifted WWE with gold. They gave The Rock this incredible character, and this does flesh out The Rock and Roman when they actually have their feud. It's not just, oh, I show up on SmackDown and now it's the WrestleMania match. It is very much, now we have all this previous history that we've built up. And with this bloodline story that's never going to end, it got even better with this. Seeing
Mm-hmm.
Cody just be left bloodied in the parking lot was such a striking image. Like, everything was so well done. The Rock concert was awesome.
Right.
And the WrestleMania matches were awesome. Everything about this was very, very good. And to think we weren't even going to get this before the fans started the We Want Cody movement is wild.
And honestly, look, I do agree. Feud slash story of the year, it's got to be that because they're still fleshing out Drew and Drew and Punk. They're still fleshing out Liv Morgan and Rhea. They're still fleshing out other aspects. Like they're still they're still fleshing out the whole Cody Bloodline 2.0 thing. They're still fleshing that out even more. But seeing how when they were, I don't know if you watched the documentary or not, but
Yeah, I did.
they
It
but
was bad.
it was all right. I feel like honestly, I wish they added more stuff. I wish there's more things
Yeah.
that they could have added to it, but that's a different day. But seeing and hearing about how they had WrestleMania everything completed, like 90% of the way completed, or like 90 something percent of the way completed. And then they said, okay, Cody, you're gonna go in, you're gonna win the Royal Rumble. And of course, originally the plan was Rock Roman versus Seth and Cody. But I didn't want to see Seth and Cody again
No.
because in their matches, Cody has beaten Seth ever since he's returned back. I've not seen Seth beat Cody at all whatsoever. Every match that them two have had, Cody has always been the one winning, not Seth. So seeing Cody shift, point to Roman and say that I want Roman, and then going on that next night of SmackDown and saying that, oh, I'm giving up my spot. I don't want the title at Wrestle. I was like, I want the title, but not at WrestleMania. And a lot of people are like, oh shit, we're not getting Cody versus Roman, we're getting Rock versus Roman. Now, do I feel like we get Rock versus Roman this year? Yes, that is a
Yes.
given. That is a guaranteed, because I don't want look, I would like to see Cody and Roman run it back, but no, I want Rock versus Roman because I've been dying to see them two go at it for a while. But the build up, the build up for that, the fans getting involved on top of that too, the whole "we want Cody" movement, the Rock calling the Cody, a lot of Cody fans, Cody crybabies, talking about the whole chicken nugget ordeal on Pat McAfee's show, and then the Rock concert, like you said, and of course the feud that built up and Seth getting involved with it. It was great. It was a great overall feud, great overall storytelling, and the final, and of course to put it to bed at WrestleMania and end it there, and then of course Rock come out on that following night and saying, "Yeah, your chapter with Roman's done, but your chapter and my chapter is just now started." That's just another book to be opened right there off the rip. But yeah, that was my favorite feud and story of the year.
Yeah, and from something they've had a lot to something that they've had a little of. One of the best things
Mhm.
Triple H did in NXT was tag team wrestling. And one of the
Oh
things
yeah.
AEW did best in the beginning was tag team wrestling. It's been
Mhm.
kind of a shame to see it just fall down over the course of this year. And that's what made this pick for me really hard, which is the best tag team slash faction. I'm not going with the Bloodline because for me they haven't worked. They need Roman to come back to add some gravitas. I went with DIY, a group
Mhm.
that had nothing going for them in the early portions of the year, and single handedly, because of their in ring work, got over with the crowd.
Mhm.
They now have championships because of a story they're involved in with
Right.
Waller in theory.
Mhm.
In a pretty desolate tag team division in terms of stories and shine this year, I think DIY takes the cake on this one.
For me, I do agree with DIY, of course, being up there with being like the best tag team slash faction, but also too, outside of the Bloodline, I mean, Bloodline, they're great and all, but I'm going with the Judgment Day in this, the best tag team slash faction. Now, were they really they were more so out, like more so a big faction than a tag team, but they still won tag team gold. Finn and Damian Priest did win tag team gold, but seeing them now, how they started out and how they got together, and it was all, and you know what, everybody needs to give their props. Give Edge his props with coming up with the faction of the Judgment Day to start off with, and to seeing where it's at now. Give Edge his props because he took a bullet to literally be kicked out of the Judgment Day so Finn, Rhea, and JD can get started with it, and then slowly add in other pieces over time. But of course, seeing how they started and then how they're starting to like kind of gel away a little bit, their story and stuff, I've always found their story more interesting than the Bloodline story, because literally the Bloodline story was when Roman was still around. Roman was like, you got to do this. You got to make sure you get this done, because if you don't, there's going to be issues. There's going to be problems. In which that there's stuff, when Roman does come back, there's going to be reprimations. There's going to be repercussions for what Roman has done to Jimmy and Jay. And then that's going to, of course, end up being, of course, down the road, a great story. But right now, best tag team faction has to be, for me, Judgment Day, honestly.
Yeah, Judgment Day has done a real good job this year. On to the best premium live event. For me, this doesn't really need much explanation. WrestleMania 40 Night 2 is one of the best WWE has ever put on. And matches up and down the card, outstanding. There was not a low point on the show. I really enjoyed it from start to finish. How about you?
Mhm. See, for me, WrestleMania, it was WrestleMania hands down, because like that was the best PLE in, like, for 2024. Um, from the start of night one to the end of night two, everything in between was great. Honestly, like, and I don't even. It just speaks for itself, and especially seeing um Rhea and Becky open up the show as well too. It was nice. It was nice, and especially seeing how some of them were, some people were saying that, of course, Becky was sick. Rhea had a messed up shoulder. Seth's knee almost being disintegrated to a T. Um, but just everybody who literally said, who were involved with WrestleMania as a whole, phenomenal. It was great, and I enjoyed every ounce of it.
Yeah, I mean, Seth for me was the MVP of
He
wrestling. He
was.
involved in 3 matches. I mean, if there's a video that was circulating online for a while after, the way his knee bends when he takes that
Mhm,
Superman punch for Roman Reigns is it's not
mhm.
supposed to bend that way.
No,
He
it's not
put his
supposed to end that
body
way.
on the line. He
Mhm.
did his job, and yeah, I mean, it was so nice to have him back on Raw, and that
Yeah,
Raw with him and Uncle Howdy debuting everything on that Raw was really
it
outstanding.
it was. It was outstanding. But what we got next? Or is it the what? The best what the fuck moments? WTF moments?
I wish, but we're gonna move on to the individual awards.
Ooh.
And starting out with those is the wrestler who has overexceeded expectations. For me, that's Nia Jax. Nobody expected Nia Jax to be this good. And she has been really, really good since she came back. I mean, she was known for being unsafe. She couldn't cut a promo to save her life. She comes back last year, and since then, she's won Queen of the Ring. She's done really outstanding work with Tiffany Stratton. She main evented Elimination Chamber against Rhea Ripley. Everything for her has been way better than what people were expecting, and I think that is more than enough to give away my overexceeded award to Nia Jax. How about you?
Oh man, see the overexceeded award. There are so many men and women on this list that I had who have overexceeded on this chart. But honestly, I'm gonna say who overexceeded in my expectations so far. One person hands down, I will say, has been Tiffany Stratton. Tiffany Stratton has over exceeded on my expectations from how from when she got called up from NXT to being on the main roster now, and of course now being Miss Money in the Bank. The expectations are like the limit for her is to the point you just got to keep going up with that, man. Like you just got to keep going up. She's over exceeded everyone's expectations. She's got the ball rolling. She is a really great performer. Mic skills, they're good, of course. You know, got a little that's a little bit work, but in ring wise, great, phenomenal. And honestly, at the end of the day, I feel like she will be either women's world champion or WWE women's champion in the future. And who knows, maybe sometime in the fall, she ends up becoming champion and we'll see how that goes. But she's someone who has overexceeded my expectations, honestly. Because at the start, I was like, I don't know how to feel about her. Then once she got the ball rolling and was on the main roster, I was like, yeah, she has a bright future.
Yeah, and from the overexceed to the underwhelming spectrum, for me, the most underwhelming wrestler has been Logan Paul. This man was U.S. champion, right? He's defended it 2 times in over 250 days. Enough said. I know he carries it around on social media, but that's not enough. You have to show up on TV and do some stuff. Thank God LA Knight's taking the title off of him at SummerSlam because it's been a pretty bad run for Logan.
It honestly has, and I do agree with you on this one. He has been underwhelming for me. There's going to be a lot of wrestlers who are underwhelming, but he's been underwhelming for me because I understand you have other stuff you got to take care of and all that. But dude, you're a champion. If you weren't a champion, I let you slide because you got other stuff you got to go do, whatever. But you're a US champ. You're supposed to be there on TV. Now, when Roman wasn't on TV as often, a lot of us knew reasons why. He had
Yes.
health issues. He had his health issues. He had his health problems. And of course, still has to make sure his body's right. But Logan Paul, dude, you're a US champ. You run a business, you run a company. Your company Prime is sponsored by WWE. Like you're a sponsor with WWE. You
Yeah.
show up, be there, be a fighting champion. And honestly, like you said, 2 days within 200 some odd days. Yeah, nah, that don't cut it for me. He's got to lose the title to LA Knight. Honestly,
Yeah, and even when Roman was on TV, or when he wasn't on TV, his presence was still felt with the bloodline.
right,
It was.
right,
With Logan Paul, he's the workhorse champion. He's the mid card champion, the guy that's
hmm
supposed to be there every week putting on
right.
matches. He hasn't done that. And that
No,
to me is just not very good. Somebody who has been very good, on the other hand, is the breakout star of the year. For me, that's Damian Priest, El Campeon. He has been awesome. I mean, for a guy like him, who people were mad when he won Money in the Bank, had a very bad Money in the Bank
hmm
run. He was tag champ while holding the briefcase. Nothing was really meshing well, and then he's champion, and goodness, has he just turned into this megastar. All of his matches have been real, real good. Um, everything for him has been going. He's gotten much better on the
Mhm.
mic. I think he's beating Gunther at SummerSlam. That might be a little out of the box, but Gunther's been way too cocky in this, and I
The
think he's going to get his payback and win the belt at Berlin in kind of, WWE considers Austria and Germany to be the same thing for some reason. But I
Mhm.
think that's a better story than, Damien just losing when he's already down. But
S
on another note, he's just been outstanding this year. The Clash of the Castle match with Drew was really, really good. Just expert stuff from both guys. For me, it's weird to say your world champion is your breakout star, but he has definitely done the job for me.
See, for me, my breakout star, it's Damian Priest's opponent, and you already just mentioned him, is Gunther. When Gunther waltzed into the main roster and he got himself the Intercontinental Champion, I was like, "Oh, yeah, Gunther's gonna be a serious problem for years to come." Not only has he been the longest reigning Intercontinental Champion for 665 days. I don't like the other extra number added to that, so I round down or I round up. But he's been champ for 666 days. He lost it to Sammy, which that's fine. But Gunther, even outside of after he lost the belt, he stepped away, of course, for a minute to go handle some stuff. But now he's back. He's wanting to he's going after Priest. He's going to take the title off Priest, in my opinion. That's what I feel like is going to happen. And that'll end up setting up Ilya versus potentially Gunther down the road. But Gunther from when he started with Imperium and then up until now, he's just been getting better and better and better in the ring, on the mic, with those deadly chops as well too. Like leaving welts on a guy's chest, even though like it's bright red. Nah, man, come on. Gunther's my breakout star. He's a guy who came on the scene and said, "Yeah, I'm going to make an impact on the main roster for sure."
Yeah, and I think he's done such a good job with that. And my NXT wrestler of the year, I don't know if you watch much NXT,
Oh, I
I
do.
find
I
myself to
do.
do, is Oba Femi. This dude is awesome. He knocked it out of the park at Stand and Deliver. He knocked it out of the park again at Heatwave with his match against Wesley. His promo work is outstanding. Everything for him has been super good. It was between him and Roxanne Perez for me. And I think because of his, kind of just breakout year that he's had, I think he takes the cake.
See, I'm a look. Everybody who's probably listening to this right now, they gonna say their NXT breakout star of the year or NXT star of the year, Trick Williams. Everybody's gonna say Trick because of course he won the NXT championship belt. Nah, I do agree with you. Obafemi, but also I'm gonna give that also to Roxanne as well too. Both of them. Because of their caliber, and when Roxanne, of course, she was hungry to come back for that NXT Women's Championship that she never lost, and she beat Lyra at Stand and Deliver. That was a great match at Stand and Deliver with her. And then when she had her program and feud with Jordan Grace with the whole TNA stuff going on, I'm like, yo, she's great. She's been great from the get go. And I've enjoyed every ounce of everything that she's done, not only in ring, but on the mic. Being present as a champion, how you carry yourself as a champion is one big thing as well, too. And then switching gears, everything that you said about Obafemi, agreed. And especially when he bullied Wes, like he pressed that man and just let him go, and even Wes hit the canvas. That I was like, yeah, Obafemi's gonna be something serious. But also his matches against Dragon Lee. I was at NXT Vengeance Day. Um, for that actually, I went in person. He had his match against Dragon Lee. He mopped. He That was a great match, but he really just put a beating on him at the end of the day. So those are my two breakout stars that I was like I can't decide on who, so I was like said screw it, I'm gonna just give the tie right there.
Yeah, I think, you take a look at NXT, they're in such a good place right now. There's no two ways about it for me. And yeah, I really do think that just it does the job in many ways. On to the main roster final awards. Best women's wrestler for me is Tiffany Stratton. She has been absolutely outstanding. I don't think there's one or two ways about it. Her matches that she had up and down the card have been really good. She was awesome in the Elimination Chamber. She had a great match at Backlash. She was also really good in the Rumble. I think she's got that star quality to her that you can't teach. You really just can't teach it. And to me, that does the job. That's more than enough for me to name her the best women's wrestler.
See, the best women's wrestler now for me. Now, if we weren't if the cut if now if we weren't talking in 2024, oh, definitely I would definitely say Rhea all around the whole board. But of course, for 2024 purposes, Rhea of course got injured her shoulder, but now she's back. I'm saying Tiffany Stratton. I agree, Tiffany Stratton, and even like I said with the Money in the Bank, she has exceeded everyone's expectations from the get go, and literally she's like you said, up and down the card, all her matches, the triple threat match that she had at Backlash was great. The Elimination Chamber match, great. When she had when she even won Miss Money in the Bank, that was a great match. All her matches up and down the card have been phenomenal, and I don't think they're I don't think she's gonna run into one bad match. I don't think she's ran in any bad matches so far this year. But of course, we're not talking about last year. We're not talking about her NXT days. We're talking about now. And I feel like, yes, she will have one or two bad matches, which will happen. But that happens to everybody. Even if you're the best, that still happens to everybody.
Yeah, I mean, the women that haven't been treated that well this year. Bailey's run has been pretty underwhelming. Liv
Yeah.
has she's been more occupied with the Judgment Day, but Tiffany has consistently been awesome. Her match against Bianca in the Queen of the Ring tournament was really,
Mm-hmm.
really good.
That was really
I mean,
good.
everything she's done has been really good. She has that star quality to her, that aura, and I do see her becoming a women's champion by the end of this year. And on to our final award, the Men's Wrestler of the Year. There are a couple options you could go with here.
Oh yeah,
But for
there
me,
are a couple.
yeah, for me, it's Drew McIntyre. You look at this guy who wasn't even supposed to be in the world title division this year. It was supposed to be Punk and Rollins at Mania.
Mm-hmm.
And a guy who didn't really have a clear sense of direction at the start of this year. He had some matches with Seth. He lost them all, unfortunately. And seeing where he is now in the best feud currently going in all of wrestling is so good to see. The match he had at WrestleMania with Seth was very good. It was all it
Mm-hmm.
needed to be. The match at Clash, I know we touched on it earlier, but also really outstanding work. He's great on the mic. His character work has been exceptional. The feuds he's been in with Rollins and Punk have been really good. I For me, the make or break here was after WrestleMania. Cody Rhodes has not been. He's done the best he could with what he's had, but it hasn't
Right.
been outstanding. To me, Drew McIntyre has been outstanding throughout the entire year,
Mm-hmm.
and that is why he wins this award.
See, so before I get into mine, I'm gonna touch base a little bit on the Cody stuff. I feel like personally, I feel like the thing with Cody and his situation now with being world champ, it's not that, he's not a boring champion. It's just they're it's just they can't really do a whole lot because of the stuff that he's wrapped up in, like the bloodline stuff that's going on and everything. But also too, I feel like they need to start giving Cody more feuds, and I feel like at some point in the future, I feel like we're gonna get a Randy Cody program. We're gonna get that feud to happen because that feud has a lot of history. Those two guys have a lot of history between each other. And on top of that, too, when Roman comes back and The Rock comes back, then that's more added to the fuel to the fire for Cody to, keep his head on a swivel severely. But my best men's wrestler of the year is Drew McIntyre. And I agree with you fully 100% because I would say Jay, but Jay is like a close, like Jay is like a second place. Once Jay got away from everything bloodline related and he started just finding himself and being his own thing. Yeah, he had to be, he was with Cody for a little bit in a tag team, but he had his fair share of stuff. He's been great. He's fucking over as shit. But but I'm not knocking Drew McIntyre or squat. Drew's obsession with CM Punk has been the best thing ever that I've seen from this. Drew's whole situation has been up in the air, not only after WrestleMania, but also too because of course contract purposes. We didn't know if we were going to see him again or not after WrestleMania. But once he came back and he was like, yeah, I'm coming for my title. I'm going to beat the living shit out of CM Punk. And of course, CM Punk saying, as long as I'm still in WWE, you're not going to be champ. That's great programming at its finest. Drew's ring work has been phenomenal. His mic skills have been phenomenal. And just how he carries himself as like, we don't have the Scottish Warrior. We have the Scottish Psychopath. That is who I've been wanting back for a while out of Drew. Don't get me wrong. The Scottish Warrior was a nice baby face, was a nice face, but we need broken dreams. Need his
We
broken
do.
dreams. We need broken dreams because he's also the Scottish Psychopath, man. He's on a tear. He's going to do any and everything to take down CM Punk, get rid of him so he can get his world title back. But that's who I got, and I agree.
Yeah, overall this year, wrestling is on a roll. SummerSlam's looking real nice. We got
Mm-hmm.
Berlin, then we got Bad Blood. They're looking at LA
Yes.
for Survivor Series. I mean, it's
Yo.
been a great year for wrestling overall, and it's only
Mm-hmm.
going to get better from here. There's
Yes.
the way Triple H books is there's long payoffs to feuds,
Right.
and does that mean that you're never going to get that instant gratification? And that keeps you watching week to week.
It
I'm
does.
intrigued with the Wyatts. I'm intrigued with Liv and Dom. I'm
Mm-hmm.
intrigued with the Bloodline. The World Heavyweight Championship scene is really good. Everything is firing on all cylinders for this company right now. And when you're hot, you can't do anything wrong. And so far, they haven't messed up anything real big. Could it happen? Yes, but I don't see it.
Yeah. Nah, I don't see it either. And plus, on top of that, too, like everything that WWE has done so far this year has been great. Have they had their few hiccup moments? Absolutely. But like you said, we got SummerSlam coming up around the corner. Literally, it's August 3rd. And of course, SummerSlam next year, it's going to be 2 nights. Or in
Yeah.
2026, it's going to be, I think, no,
Yeah, 2
2026 is 2
nights.
nights. Yeah, it's going to be 2 nights in 2026. But Bash in Berlin. Then you got Bad Blood. And I live 3 hours away from Atlanta. So I'm definitely going to that. And I'm going to go that in person because that's in October. That's slowly gearing towards Royal Rumble season, WrestleMania season, all that stuff. Now, do we see a certain someone coming back at that time frame? The Rock, who knows? Or do we see him in LA at Survivor Series
That's
return?
what I've been on the board of. Is he cost
I
Team Roman against the new Bloodline?
Yeah, so I feel like it could either be one of those two things, but wrestling this year is going to be great. I have high hopes for WWE. And even with the stuff that they're doing in NXT with TNA, that's been
Yep.
great as well too. And I feel like also AEW, I slowly started getting into AEW a little bit. And I feel like, don't get me wrong, the wrestlers are great. They need somebody who they just need
They need
someone in the
story.
crowd, and they need someone in their back room area or back office or office area setting stuff. They need somebody a great booker, a great storyteller. So that way they can have that stuff that keeps people engaged and keep people going with wanting to watch all this stuff is because I feel like what AEW literally is it's fantasy wrestling matches that
Yep.
we are getting. And don't get me wrong, I love fantasy booking. I love seeing fantasy book matches, but also I want storytelling to see how this feud got to this point from start to end. But
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean AEW they've always been a matches promotion, but I think it's starting to hurt them now because of just how
Mm-hmm.
red hot WWE is.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, NXT is doing great. Do you believe in Joe Hendry?
I do believe in Joe Hendry.
I believed in him until last night, and he should have won the title. I still
He
think
should
it's a
have.
missed opportunity, but if this does mean he is going to beat Ethan Page for the NXT Championship, I am very excited for that. But
Yo,
still, they should have crowned him as champion last
they
night.
should have.
Very rarely does a small promotion like TNA have a chance to get a guy like Joe Hendry, who is this over with the wider wrestling community. He
With
could
the
show up on
entire
Raw or
world.
SmackDown with the casuals, and they probably know who he is. You
Oh,
very rarely have
yeah.
a chance to do that.
Nah. And also on top of that too, outside of just like the stuff that they're doing, even just some of the acquisitions WWE has gotten. Of course, Ethan Page
Yeah.
being one. Motor City Julia, Motor City Machine Guns, Stephanie Vakir. That's 4 people right there that they're already getting and stuff. And honestly, as well too, like I feel like AEW is slowly missing on opportunities to get people to come into their company because it's so much stuff that they're intertwined with. WWE only has their three shows, and then of course TNA. And that's it. It's only 4 things that they got to work with, and that's it, which has been great because a lot of former TNA wrestlers were in WWE. And hopefully down the road, we get to see that happen, not with just the NXT roster, but with the main roster, because I would want to see Cody Rhodes versus Nick Nemeth again. One time.
He's the champion right now. And
Yeah.
Extra Wrestling's in a good place. Let's close it out with one bold wrestling prediction for the rest of the year. For me, something that I could see happening to add some gravitas towards Mania 41. My bold prediction is that The Rock beats Cody Rhodes at Survivor Series for the championship, and then at the end of the night, in the main event War Games match, comes out and shows that he's been pulling the strings on the new bloodline, and then we get Roman, Rock, at Mania for the championship.
So my bold prediction for this year, it does lead to Mania 41 because of course SummerSlam, they're speculating that Seth Rollins is going to be the special guest referee for Drew McIntyre versus CM Punk. I feel like at WrestleMania, the feuds that those 3 guys are going to have over the course of the next couple of months, one match is going to end up being Bad Blood. And then eventually down the road, those 3 guys are going to be in a triple threat match for potentially not even just a world heavyweight, maybe a world heavyweight championship belt or not. But I see those 3 guys being in a match. And I feel like CM Punk walks out of WrestleMania as world heavyweight champion in the future.
Yeah, that's something I could definitely see happening. So thanks, Joe, for coming on. It was nice
No problem.
doing this. So
of course,
maybe we'll do it again. Maybe we won't. But thanks for listening to Section 101, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah.